The Lost Scrolls, Ep.4, Nimrod and Mystery Babylon. The world was washed clean, a canvas of mud and mist under a sky of bruised violet. On the crown of Ararat, the great ark rested, a wooden womb that had held the breath of all life. The air, thin and sharp, tasted of rain and beginnings. Noah, his face a map of seasons, stepped onto the wet earth. His knees met the stone, not in exhaustion, but in reverence. The scent of sacrifice, the first since the world drowned, curled towards a silent heaven, a promise whispered in smoke. His sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, followed, their faces etched with awe and a deep, unspoken sorrow for the world that was. They stood beside their father, three pillars of a new humanity, their shadows long in the dawn's hesitant light. The covenant was sealed not in words, but in the arc of a rainbow that bled color across the clouds, a divine signature, a promise that the waters would not claim the world again. Below the mountain, the valleys sighed. Water receded like a slow, mournful breath, revealing a landscape reborn, emerald green, impossibly vibrant, pushed through the silt. Life, tenacious and sacred, began its patient crawl back into the light. It was a world of echoes, haunted by the ghosts of the drowned, yet humming with the pure, fierce song of survival. But peace is a fragile seed. In the land of Shinar, where the earth was fat and fertile, a shadow began to grow. It walked on two legs and carried the name Nimrod, grandson of Ham. He was a colossus, a man forged from the earth's new clay and the old world's pride. The beasts of the field fell before his spear, and men fell before his gaze. A mighty hunter before the Lord, the whispers named him, but the phrase was a shard of glass, its meaning twisted. He hunted, not for sustenance, but for dominion. His prey was not merely the lion and the bear, but the very spirit of man. He gathered the scattered tribes, his voice a drumbeat of unity, his promises a balm for their fears. Why scatter? He would thunder, his voice echoing across the plains. Why wander like sheep without a shepherd? Are we not one blood, one people? Let us build a name for ourselves, a kingdom that will not be washed away. Let us forge our own heaven here on the soil of Shinar. And so they built, first Erech, then Akkad, then Calneh, cities of brick and bitumen, monuments to their own strength. But their ambition coalesced around one name, a name that would ring through eternity, Babel. The earth groaned under the weight of their pride. They baked bricks in the furnace of the sun, each one a hardened prayer to their own divinity. Mortar, black and sticky, bound them together, a dark communion of purpose. A tower was their goal, a needle to pierce the veil of the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, they chanted, the words a rhythm for their hammers, lest we be scattered over the face of the whole earth. The tower grew, a jagged finger of defiance pointing at the sky. It was more than a building, it was a declaration, a statement that humanity would no longer be subject to the whims of a distant god. They would climb to him, meet him on their own terms, and seize their own immortality. They were united in this grand blasphemy, their single language a powerful, unbroken chain. From the heights of eternity, the Creator looked down. He saw the city and the tower, the bricks of their arrogance, the mortar of their rebellion. He heard the single, proud voice of humanity, and in its unity he saw the seed of a perfect tyranny. It was not the height of the tower that offended heaven, but the depth of the pride that built it. A whisper descended, not a flood or a fire, but something far more subtle, far more profound. It touched the mind, the tongue, the very architecture of thought. A mason turned to his brother, a simple request on his lips, but the words that emerged were a stream of alien sounds, a cascade of nonsense. Panic, like a flock of startled birds, took flight. The harmony of the worksite shattered into 1,000 shards of discord. A command became a curse. A warning became a jibe. The chain of their single language was broken, and with it, their unity, their power, their grand design. They looked at one another, and for the first time, they saw not brothers, but strangers. They fled. They scattered from that place as if from a plague, driven by a fear they could not name, speaking in tongues they did not know. They flowed out across the plains, families of strange new languages, seeking solace in separation. The tower, unfinished, stood as a monument to their broken pride, its shadow stretching long and silent over the land. The age of unity was over. The age of nations had begun. But the spirit of Babel did not die. It festered in the heart of the city, which now bore a new name, Babylon, and in its dark heart ruled a new power. Nimrod, the broken king, was gone. Some say torn apart by the very people he once led. But his queen, the enigmatic Semiramis, remained. She was a woman of terrible beauty and cunning, her grief a cloak for her ambition. She stood before the confused masses, her voice a silver thread weaving a new tapestry of lies. Nimrod is not dead, she proclaimed, her eyes blazing. He has ascended. He is the sun god, reborn in the heavens. She held aloft a child, Tammuz, claiming he was Nimrod reincarnated, a miraculous conception. Thus, the first false trinity was born from the ashes of Babel's pride. Nimrod, the deified father. Semiramis, the queen of heaven, the mother of a god. And Tammuz, the divine child, the false promise of salvation. It was a perversion of a heavenly truth, a shadow cast long before the substance, a trinity made by man, in the image of his own lust for power. This new religion, this mystery, spread with the scattered peoples. It changed its names, its symbols, but its heart remained the same. Ishtar in Assyria, Isis in Egypt, Aphrodite in Greece. The mother and child became a universal idol, a comforting lie whispered in 100 new tongues. The worship was intoxicating, a feast for the senses. Incense clouded the mind, chants hypnotized the soul, and rituals promised power and secret knowledge. But beneath the gilded surface, the rot was deep. Blood altars were raised in secret groves. Children were passed through the fire. It was a religion of control, veiled in mysticism, demanding not faith, but submission. This was the soul of Babylon. Yet, in the midst of the growing darkness, a flicker of the old light remained. A people who remembered. Through the line of Shem, a remnant was preserved. They were a people of tents and flocks, not of towers and thrones. They carried no idols of gold or stone, but held a promise in their hearts, passed from father to son like a sacred fire. They remembered the garden, the scent of untainted air, the sound of God walking in the cool of the day. They remembered the fall, the serpent's lie, and the first blood that stained the earth. And they clung to the first prophecy, the first glimmer of hope whispered to the serpent in the ruins of paradise. A promise that echoed louder than all the chants of Babylon. For even as the shadow of the mother and child spread across the nations, and the spirit of Nimrod's defiance infected the kingdoms of men, the ancient words held their power, a divine decree that could not be broken, a truth that would one day split history in two. A soft echo carried on the desert wind, a promise waiting for its appointed time. The seed of the woman shall still rise,